What's mine is yours, that's what marriage is supposed to mean. But when my husband started taking what was mine without asking, I knew something had to change. My husband, Benjamin, had a habit of claiming my things for himself, or worse, giving them away to his family to make himself look good. When he tried to pass off gifts I had bought for my parents as presents for his own, I had enough. That's just wrong, I told him firmly. He scoffed, until I told him the truth. Then, he turned pale. Before we got married, my grandparents gifted me something invaluable, real estate. I was overjoyed, thanking them and telling them it would help me and Benjamin build our future, but instead of sharing my excitement, they looked serious. Don't tell him, my grandfather warned. Not about the property, not about the passive income. Keep it to yourself, no matter how much you love him. At the time, I felt guilty. Shouldn't I be open with my husband? But out of respect for my grandparents, I kept it a secret. My grandfather passed away not long after, and life with Benjamin continued. Until the day I noticed something strange. Checking our joint account, the one meant for everyday expenses, I froze. $10,000, gone. I hadn't touched it, that left only one possibility. When Benjamin came home, I wasted no time. Did you withdraw $10,000 from our account? Oh, yeah, he shrugged, like it was nothing. I loaned it to my mom, she needed it. I stared at him. And you didn't think to tell me? It's my money, he said, as if that explained everything. Besides, we have savings, it's not a big deal. I felt a headache coming on. If his mother was in trouble, of course, I would have helped, but this was our shared account. Shouldn't he have talked to me first? Instead of admitting he was wrong, Charles sighed heavily. Fine, whatever, I'll tell you next time. He shot me an irritated look and walked away. Except, there was no next time, because what happened a few days later changed everything. A package meant for my in-laws was mistakenly delivered to our house. I took it over, intending to leave it at the door, but Lisa, my mother-in-law, insisted I come in for tea. That's when I saw it. Luxury cosmetics, designer clothes, expensive health products. Lisa beamed at me. Oh, my wonderful son spoiled me. There was $10,000 in my account, so of course, I treated myself. My stomach twisted. This was the trouble she had needed help with? I set down my teacup, suddenly losing my appetite. Lisa and her husband must have sensed my mood shift because their smiles faded. Then, their tone changed. My son does so much for me, Lisa said coolly. And what about you? That's right, my father-in-law chimed in. As his wife, are you taking care of him properly? Then came the kicker. Benjamin told us, Lisa continued. You scolded him for giving me money, how selfish. And just like that, I understood. Benjamin had twisted the story, making himself the devoted son and me the villain. Something inside me snapped. I was done with the manipulation, done with the entitlement, done with Benjamin. The moment I got home, I picked up the phone and called my parents. I think I want a divorce, I told them. Then, after a pause, I added, and I want to rebuild your house. To my surprise, they didn't seem shocked. Instead, they sounded relieved. I'm glad you're planning to rebuild the house for us. Thank you, my mom said softly. Even over the phone, I could hear the warmth in her voice, and my heart felt lighter. My dad added, even if we won't be living there for long, it's fine, you can take over the house after us. It was built with your income, after all. That made me smile. I'll start planning little by little. Just don't overdo it, my mom warned gently. Their support gave me a renewed sense of purpose. I wasted no time, making arrangements and waiting for the construction company to begin. But then, just as things were falling into place, Benjamin stormed into the living room, his face twisted with anger. How dare you use our savings to build a house without telling me, he roared, slamming his fist on the table. I barely had time to react before he continued his tirade, his voice growing louder, completely disregarding my feelings. Well, if there's a new house, my parents will live in it, he declared, as if it was already decided. I met his glare with an unwavering stare. No, it was built for my parents. His eyes darkened. You used our money, my parents have the right to live in it, too. I scoffed. So, what? You plan to shove 4 people into a 1-story house? Benjamin slammed his fist again. Shut the hell up, just give me the house, then. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I had kept my passive income a secret for this very reason, to protect myself. But now, I saw no point in hiding it any longer. To tell you the truth, I said slowly, watching his expression carefully, I paid for the house, not a penny came from our shared finances. His body stiffened. I continued, my voice unwavering, I have a passive income from real estate my grandparents gifted me, I've been saving for years. Silence. Then, Benjamin's face turned an alarming shade of red. You He pounded the table so hard the cups rattled. You horrible wife, hiding money while spending mine. What kind of woman does that? I didn't flinch. Instead, a cold realization settled over me. My grandparents had seen through him long before I had. Benjamin clenched his fists. Fine, I'll take the house as alimony. It's mine too. I'm the head of this family, and if you don't obey me, I'll divorce you. Something inside me snapped. I had spent years sacrificing, compromising, and trying to make this marriage work. And for what? To be treated like a wallet? Like someone who needed to obey him? I met his furious gaze with nothing but calm. Be my guest. Then, without another word, I stood up and walked away. I didn't want to be near Benjamin. I booked a room at a business hotel for the night, needing space to clear my mind. Just one day, one night away from him, then I'd return, refreshed and ready to face whatever came next. But when I walked back into our home the next morning, Benjamin was waiting for me, with a disgusting smile on his face. He smirked as he pulled a sheet of paper from behind his back and thrust it toward me. Divorce papers, already filled out. You're lying about that so-called passive income, aren't you? He sneered. You made it up to cover the fact that you were actually stealing from our shared savings, didn't you? His accusations were the same as before, baseless, infuriating. I met his gaze, unshaken. I told you the truth, I have passive income. Benjamin rolled his eyes. Here you go again. Then his smirk widened, and he shoved the divorce papers into my hands. I know you can't live without me, he taunted. As if that wasn't enough, he patted my shoulder condescendingly and added, You'll let me know when we can move in, right? Anyway, I'm going out for a drink. And with that, he walked away, humming to himself as if he had already won. It was in that moment that everything clicked into place. Benjamin had never truly respected me, he had never valued me, he had always looked down on me, he had just been good at hiding it. Enough. Without hesitation, I packed my belongings, I sat down, filled out the divorce papers on the spot, and walked out the door without looking back. I moved in with my parents for the time being, explaining everything to them. They welcomed me home without hesitation, and we agreed to stay together until the house was finished. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of missed calls from Benjamin. Then, as if on cue, my phone rang again. I sighed and picked up, hoping this would be the last time I ever had to hear his voice. Hello? Hey, he snapped, all your stuff is gone, you know. His voice was impatient, panicked. I frowned. We're getting a divorce, so that's normal, I won't ever come back, so please, feel free to use the empty space however you like. Silence. Then, after a long pause, his voice softened into something unnatural. Hey, can you let my parents live in the new house? I almost laughed. What? I don't even care if I have to live with your parents, he wheedled. Just let my parents move in, please. I let out a slow breath, trying to process the sheer audacity of what he was asking. I already told you, it's a small one-story house. Benjamin's desperation bled through the phone. Please, I already told my parents I'd surprise them with a house. A cold chill ran down my spine. He had promised his parents my house, a house he had no part in building. You, already told them? I repeated, stunned. So what? He shot back defensively. So you were planning to take credit for everything? I asked, my voice sharpening. You don't really care about the savings, do you? He scoffed. His words ignited something in me. You have no idea how much I worried about money, the money I gave you as an allowance, the money I saved for living expenses, how hard I tried to make ends meet. What does that have to do with anything? I clenched my jaw. You're careless with money, you dump all the hassle on someone else, then present it as if you did all the work. I exhaled sharply. This house was built by me, for my parents, not for you to use as some pathetic bragging right. Benjamin fell silent. I had finally said everything I had bottled up for so long. And I wasn't done. I will not give you the house I built with my heart and soul for my parents just so you can show off to yours. I rejected him completely. Benjamin's voice turned desperate. But husbands and wives are supposed to help each other. I almost felt sorry for him, almost. We're not husband and wife anymore, are we? I said coldly. What? We are strangers now, I reminded him, my voice unwavering. I already filed for divorce. The moment he had shoved those papers at me, thinking he had the upper hand, I had signed them and taken them straight to the city office. Benjamin's breath hitched. For the first time, he was the one left speechless. Why, you already filed it? Benjamin's voice cracked, thick with disbelief. I scoffed. You're the one who wanted a divorce. Why are you acting so surprised? Oh, I didn't think you'd actually leave me. There it was, the truth behind his arrogance. He had never really believed I'd walk away. His tone softened, turning unbearably pathetic. Hey, let's start over. Let's talk this through and try to be a good couple this time. I almost laughed. This was the same man who drained our savings for his mother, threatened me with divorce like it was a game, and mocked me until the very end. And now, when reality hit him square in the face, now he wanted to talk? No, thank you, I said cheerfully. Give my regards to your parents. And with that, I hung up. The next day, my phone overflowed with voicemails and desperate messages. Benjamin begged me to come back, said we could still make it work, that he loved me. But I knew the truth. He didn't love me, he loved what he had lost. My property, my income, my security. To sever all ties, I blocked him and his entire family. Meanwhile, life moved forward, the house was completed, and my parents and I settled in comfortably. Then, one afternoon, I ran into an old mutual friend. When I casually mentioned the divorce, they gave me a knowing look. You haven't heard, have you? They asked. I raised an eyebrow. Heard what? And then they told me everything. The moment Benjamin thought he had secured his real estate empire, aka my house, he had marched into work and smugly submitted his resignation. Apparently, he had announced to his coworkers that he no longer needed a job, that he had made it. No one could reach him, he had vanished. Then, the very next day, he slunk back into the office, trying to withdraw his resignation. His bosses weren't amused. They dragged him into a meeting and tore into him, how irresponsible he was, how he had caused unnecessary trouble, how selfishly he had acted without a second thought for the people who had worked alongside him. And when they asked why he had quit so suddenly, well, what could he say? He certainly couldn't admit that he had banked everything on his wife's money, on me. He tried to lie, but the truth had already spread. The company knew about our divorce, they knew about the house, they knew he had nothing. And with that, Benjamin sealed his own fate. His resignation remained final, no rehire, no second chances. The irony was almost poetic. The man who had belittled my passive income, mocked my financial independence, and treated me like a fool, had ended up ruining himself by counting on my money. I didn't feel sorry for him. I felt free. I later heard that Benjamin had no choice but to move back in with his parents. Given how they had always looked down on me, I could only imagine the hell they were putting him through now. Desperate, he had been scrambling to find another job, but since everyone knew why he had quit, no one was eager to hire him. And honestly, that was his problem. As for me? I was finally living my life. The home I built was mine, the income one earned was mine, the future I had fought for, mine. I had once saved my earnings for Benjamin and our future. Now, I would use them for the people who had always stood by me. And I had never felt more at peace.